Good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning for How to Collaborate. This series of events has been designed and created to bring speakers and panelists from different sectors together to share their experiences over the past year and see how we can all innovate, collaborate and lead more effectively. I'm Jordan, your host for this morning, and from Heifer Innovation. We help businesses to innovate, accelerate and incubate. So we help businesses to innovate and accelerate through the free support we currently provide through Breakthrough, which is our £1.2 million project funded by the European Union, which is running till the end of this year. Funding is secured regardless of what happens. With Brexit, we're still here to support you till the end of this year. And we provide you with workshops, training, events, networking, and a bespoke one-to-one support service, working alongside you to solve any challenges and access any opportunities. We also incubate through our site at Heifer Engineering Centre and Scotland Enterprise Park, based in Norfolk and North Norfolk respectively. This gives you the space and the on-site support you need to develop and grow your startup and become competitive on a national and global stage. But before we get started today, before I kind of talk a bit more about the event, I'm going to launch a quick poll, see if the polls are all working okay, see if all of you are engaged and ready for the morning ahead. I want to ask two questions. One, to see how our morning rituals, our morning work rituals have changed, and then the other to see about what collaboration actually means to you. So allow the panelists to take this time as well. So got two questions for you. I want to know, what is the weekday breakfast of champions? What helped you get going in the morning? And then also, what does the word collaboration mean to you? Got cereal, got some fruits. Got a big skew on what the word collaboration means to you as well. Oh, someone's taken the dive. Someone's chosen another answer finally. Good, so I'll give you just another few seconds to answer that. Fantastic. So, the weekday breakfast of champions is porridge. I don't know what that means. I wasn't expecting that. And one of you has answered what's breakfast. There you go, that might help share the poll results. And what does the word collaboration mean to you? Almost all of you went for teamwork, whereas one of you went for progress. I'd be interested to know who that was. I have a feeling it might be Andy. Andy's always one to change, be a bit different. Cool. So I'll stop sharing those results now. So moving on. How to collaborate is the second of 3 sessions, with How to Innovate having taken place last week and How to Lead taking place next week. Last week we were joined by organisations in the health science and medtech sector, the circular economy, creative industries and the support services available to allow you to innovate effectively. The recording of that session will be available on our website and YouTube channel shortly, so please keep an eye out on those for that. And also, to sign up to How to Lead next week, please check out our Eventbrite page or our events page on the Heifer Innovation website. So, over the past year, we've all had to change the way we live, the way we travel, the way we communicate with each other, and working life's been no different. The normal 9 to 5 has seen a transformation to a more accommodating way of working, with flexible remote working increasing in popularity. Over the past 12 months, we've all experienced the positives and benefits of this digital transformation, as well as the negatives. But with the way that we create new ideas, establish and develop relationships, and generally grow our respective organisations, collaboration has influenced our ability to do this enormously. So we hope that over the next hour and a half, you hear from sectors that you typically wouldn't hear from, cover similarities and stark differences between the sectors you operate in, and how the findings, opinions and experiences felt over the past year can be implemented into your organisation. The session We'll begin with our panelists providing a 5-minute lightning talk, sharing how they and the organisations around them have been able to collaborate effectively over the last year. We will then go into our Q&A section, where you can ask our panelists what's on your mind or anything that you'd want to expand upon. A recording will be made following the session within the next day or two, so do not fear if you are unable to stay for the entire event for whatever reason. So I'm delighted to welcome our panel today. We've got Penny Bartram from the Cambridge Knowledge Tech Corridor, Katie Fisher from User Story, Lucy Summers and Jake Sutcliffe from Indigo Illusions, James Williamson from Name, and Andy Narayan Barrow from Heffel Innovation. But before we launch into our first lightning talk, I want to head into our second poll. So, I just want to know, do you agree with this statement? The conditions created in the last year have made it easier for our organisation to collaborate. Got some interesting answers coming in. I like it. So, how has this shift in working allowed you to collaborate? Made it easier? Less easy? Not sure? What's collaboration? I'll give you just a few more seconds. Last few of you to get an answer in. A really, really interesting mix of answers there. Some of you have found it a lot easier. Some of you, not so much. Really, really interesting to see that there's more of you who have disagreed than agreed. But let's explain that. It'd be interesting to see why that is the case. Certain industries found it easier to collaborate, some less so. Hopefully, that may become a bit more clear as we speak to our panelists today. Moving on today. First up, we have Penny Bartram, Head of Marketing at Cambridge Knowledge Tech Corridor. Penny's goal is to help build and promote a district joined up by a compelling narrative for the Cambridge Knowledge Tech Corridor, shining a spotlight on game-changing businesses and research institutions, all of which form the basis for attracting and retaining entrepreneurs, investors, and high-growth businesses. I'll hand over to you now, Penny.
Great, thank you. I'll just share my screen. Okay. Is that working for everybody?
Nope.
No, nothing coming up? Anything now?
Nope.
On my screen, no, nothing there. Okay, let me try this one.
There we go.
Is this working? Anything there?
Yep.
Okay, good.
All good.
Okay. Good start. Right. Hope that's not in my 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you a really kind of whistle-stop tour of the tech corridor, explain what we do, and try to keep it in 5 minutes. So as Jordan's already said, the tech corridor is a non-profit partnership initiative. It's led by the public sector. It's really kind of in collaboration with the private sector, and both representatives sit on our board. And the aim of the tech corridor, as Jordan's already kind of alluded to, is that it's really about trying to make this region better recognised for being a great place for tech businesses to come and set up, to grow, to expand, to cluster with other like-minded businesses, and for really highly skilled, purpose-driven employees to want to come and work in this region. And that in turn, it really creates kind of a very healthy, wealthy ecosystem, which hopefully will attract new businesses to the region and also investors who might want to invest in commercial real estate or into infrastructure in the region or the businesses themselves. So what I wanted to do today was very quickly kind of highlight some of the things we do and really show that collaboration is pretty much at the heart of everything. So what we do is loosely broken into three main areas, and the first of which is my kind of gig as kind of a marketing lead. It's really about creating a collective voice for the region. So this is about helping to build the profile and reputation of the region, because it's quite an unsung region as a whole. And it's about kind of really trying to raise the profile, both here in the region, but also nationally and globally, about the businesses that are here, the key locations we've got, the assets and communities. And our strategy for doing that is about taking these individual voices and stories in the region, which are really, really strong on their own, but then trying to knit them together into a much wider, a richer, kind of more topical narrative. So a couple of examples for how we do this, we might highlight a great EV business such as Spark EV or Lotus, but we really try to pull them through as part of the story around the whole cluster that is around them. So you can see here a piece about Lotus that we did in our employee magazine, which was showing about what's around them at Hethel, why they're there. Or we may bring out the common purpose in the individuals that are here. So the Disruptors series that we ran was about that kind of common thread that runs through individuals here, that people want to do things differently. Or we may pull a global kind of story into the region, which is about how pioneers here are trying to solve some of the global issues that are facing all countries around the world, such as profiling technology businesses that are addressing the challenge of aging populations. So what this really does is it shows it as individual businesses, but it really knits them into something that is a bit more sustainable, a bit more kind of long term for investors and other businesses to be able to tap into. The second thing we do is around making crucial connections. So how do we take those businesses and those organisations and those assets and physically connect them together a bit better so that they are able to collaborate more, find new opportunities, all about kind of scaling and growing. So we do things like regular networking sessions with what we call our ambassador businesses, who are people that have signed up to help us largely with the first piece around how do we promote our region more coherently, but also they get involved in some of our other activities. And this is a great chance for them to get to know each other, to understand who else is in this region, other sectors that are here, and to help them kind of find new partners. But we also pull businesses together on really kind of strategic goals. So we've done hackathons in the past around sustainability challenges that we have specifically here in this region, and we'll pull together businesses to try and solve that together. And we've also recently set up a thing called Funding Fit, which we set up during COVID, which is putting really kind of handpicked businesses together around different funding opportunities and to try to get them to pitch together to be kind of more compelling. And we've done 4 of those events so far, and we've had about £2.2 million worth of bids put in. And then finally, the last piece is around lobbying for the future. So what we have for the region is this kind of helicopter view of what's going on, what our key assets are. And we've also recently started working with Parking and Wheels to really start mapping what's here and what the potential is, what the barriers are, so that we can start lobbying for the infrastructure that we really need to kind of unlock full potential for the region. And that really helps with kind of more localized conversations like Norwich. Recently, we were on the Norwich Towns Fund deal board, and we helped them to show how investing into Norwich really helps the kind of the whole ecosystem of the whole region, and they successfully won £25 million worth of investment. So finally, that's kind of 5 minutes of like really going incredibly quickly. But if there's anything there that you think, yes, I'd like to hear a bit more about that, or even better still, I'd like to collaborate on, lots of ways to get involved and to contact us. I think that's me.
Impeccable timing, Penny. Impeccable.
Good. Okay, let me get back into the screen. Oh my goodness, where's my screen gone? There you go.
Thank you. No, it's really, really interesting, really important topic. Actually know who you're going to be collaborating with, like-minded individuals, like-minded businesses who can help you achieve your goals, but also to look at, well, what other challenges could I contribute to? So thanks for that. And obviously, any questions that you want to ask Penny, please put them in the Q&A. And when we get to that part of the event, we can ask her. So next up, got Katie Fisher from User Story. With a master's in social psychology, Katie started her career as a user researcher, later moving into a more strategic role. Now helps businesses research and prioritize their roadmaps to improve the digital experience of their products and services and to deliver maximum value to their users. So over to you, Katie. I'm looking forward to this presentation.
I'm glad you are. I'm hoping it's going to be fine. Right. Is that showing?
All good. Yeah.
Lovely. Right. Let me just get myself sorted. This better not count as time, Jordan. Cool. So yeah, like Jordan said, I am Katie. I'm from the User Story, and we're a user experience design agency based in Norwich. And collaboration is probably like 70% of how we actually get work done. And collaboration, I'll start off by saying, is actually really hard. And for us, I think there was a huge change last year. And I don't think a lot of us were prepared for the speed of change or actually what that involved. And in a matter of months, we as a business went to having weekly client visits. We were in the office every day. We had immediate access to team members, to even in March, no face-to-face meetings, and just so many Slack messages. And a really key thing for us within our team is that we can't succeed alone. And we can't do that with our clients either without collaborating. And a lot of the ways that we originally did that were taken away really quickly. And it felt like it was a little bit of a risk, because how do we actually change the way in which we're working to still show the value that we are delivering without all of the ways that we would do it before? But we also missed each other. So a part of helping collaborate within the team, we have a monthly fund budget, and this is us making our Christmas wreaths remotely. And we found kind of ways to recharge, and it's just having those relationships and feeling connected that made our kind of intra-team collaboration a bit easier. But with our clients, it was a slightly different story. So we really needed to adapt, and that was in spite of us actually being pretty used to remote working with clients, especially because a lot of them are based around the country. In London, they have other clients who are based all around the world. But we still needed to kind of make some changes to make sure that we could keep everything going. So when everything kind of kicked off, we were using Slack, we had Google Meets, we had our arranged meetings. But what we really quite quickly realized was that it wasn't immediate enough. And one of the things we did was move to Discord, which has the same kind of stuff as Slack, but you can also have voice rooms. So we actually found that you can jump in a voice chat with someone way more quickly. You don't have to set up a Google Meet link and wait for people to join and deal with all of that. So that really, really helped. And in the vein of kind of real-time communication, we also tried out a tool called Whimsical, which helped us with a lot of the wireframing and workshopping we did, because it shows you what other people are doing on this virtual whiteboard, so you can follow people's cursors. And combining that with a voice chat made it almost feel like we were in the same room. But the biggest thing that changed was kind of the extra level of preparation that was needed to actually effectively collaborate online. And really broadly, and I'm using both of my dogs to illustrate this here, is that there are two types of character you can typically find if you're having a call or you're trying to run a workshop online. And like, we have Phoebe here, she has lots of ideas and she is really happy to share them. It is not a problem. And then we have Lexi, who is a bit more reserved, might need a little bit more help in actually articulating what she's trying to get across. And what was important for us is realizing that neither one is more valid than the other, but it does take more preparation and practice to get the most out of people when you can't read body language and the subtle cues that you can when you're in a room together. And this actually affected the whole business, because we now needed to spend more time preparing for things that we used to be able to do pretty naturally. But it is possible. After a few teething problems, we kind of got into our stride. We created templates for workshops and design sessions that we conducted remotely. We found the right tools to actually help everyone feel more involved, because there is nothing worse than being on a call and either being spoken at for an hour or an hour and a half, or not being able to contribute at all and not actually actively participate. So that was a really big thing for us, and being mindful of actually that we're asking a lot of people and it is harder to do things online. So something else we did was we created Nook. So like a lot of other businesses, we found that we still missed in-person collaboration, but we either couldn't go to the office or we didn't need to. So we did it up a bit, and we provided a space for other teams could come and have a place to collaborate on a totally flexible basis, no contracts. You could book it for a day, come in, use our office, and kind of just have a space to do that. So generally, some kind of do's and don'ts from our learnings: do try new things, prepare as much as you can to make sure that people can actively participate, and get as close to real time as you can. And don't sacrifice your sanity. It is just a bit harder, and kind of don't drive yourself crazy. Everyone's really stressed anyway. It will be fine. Also, like, don't expect it to be the same as in person. It's not that easy to recreate that environment, and that's fine. We can only do what we can do. And don't expect too much of people. Some people are way more used to working remotely or online than others, and that's something that we just need to overcome effectively and just try and make it as exciting as possible. That is me.
Okay, so really interesting, and a really interesting point about the different types of personalities you will have in a team, some being louder, some being more reserved, about getting that balance right, making sure everyone can get involved to collaborate effectively. Brilliant, thank you. So we now move on to Lucy and Jake from Indigo Illusions. Having both studied at Norwich University of the Arts, their background in animation, passion, attention for detail and storytelling is the key driving force for their creative startup. In a world of outdated marketing and advertising with no oomph, Indigo Illusions work towards bringing a breath of fresh air to the creative world. Lucy and Jake.
Wow, thank you for that wonderful intro. Yeah. I think I just said that better myself. Yeah, do you want to whip up our... Can you guys all see that all right?
Yep, all good.
So you can just click on it to change it.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so I completely apologise. Probably won't matter too much now, but we might be disappearing into the backgrounds. I don't think this webcam likes... Oh, that's completely disappeared.
That's fine, don't worry.
Okay, brilliant. I didn't set this up. Yeah, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of how we collaborated and what kind of really happened to us during this pandemic. So as we started, as the coronavirus kicked off, we had booked previously like quite a few video shoots for April, and yeah, they were all postponed, and obviously it hit us quite hard not knowing, what we're going to do, but it also just gave us that opportunity to focus what's important, focus on our brand, because we as soon as coronavirus hit, we'd hit our first year of business, and it was just a bit like, okay, right, we've got this first year, we've built this momentum. Now let's decide with this time, who do we want to be? How do we want to position ourselves in the markets? And then that kind of led us on to a few different things. Like, we met the right people, which was a stroke of luck. We met a lovely business mentor, set us on the right path, told us to do things that we hadn't previously thought about doing, which obviously led us to do a lot more networking of what we were actually doing. Yeah, so our biggest thing that we spent doing during this coronavirus period is just building meaningful relationships with other business owners, other agency owners, and just kind of really talking to people, ask them what their opinion is of the situation. How can we help them? How can they help us? And just kind of really working together, really, don't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, where are we now? Oh, sorry, presentation malfunction. Yeah, and just that led us on to the thought of, you know, people were always happy to help us and we were happy to help them. They gave us a whole new insight and different ways of thinking about things, and different ways of, yeah, kind of getting ourselves through this kind of time, but also trying to maximize our leverage, maximize how we were collaborating with other people. Yeah, and that just, you know, another point is that with all the time that we've had, we've just constantly been learning more. In the pandemic never talks. We've all just got so much more time on our hands, and that kind of uncertainty of what's going to happen next turned into excitement. You know, we can put ourselves in a really good position now. So when we come out of this, we can have a whole new like kind of brand behind us, and that kind of led us on to do the more collaboration stuff.
Yeah. So how do we establish and manage our positive relationships with other agencies and business owners? So as Jake said before, we were doing tons of networking locally, globally. We were making connections all around the world. We were talking to people in London, the States, just everywhere really. So that sort of led us on to meeting new communities where businesses could support each other. We were taking part in a lot more things. Follow-ups are like super important. Like that's kind of how we've been maintaining our meaningful relationships. It's kind of really important to not be pitchy at people and just like not selling all the time. It's really important to nurture your friendships with other business owners, and of course like keeping that kindness going all the time. Like paying it forward is so important. Like just offering to help other people out, and we've found that a lot of people have done the same. So and just asking for and giving introductions, it's like a snowball effect. It just kind of has led us straight through that, hasn't it? So,
yeah, I guess one important bit to add to that is really not seeing the internet as, you know, the best way to tackle through this. We were joining events like BNIs and stuff like that all over the country and stuff in America, just because it was all online now and it just didn't really matter where we were. So that just really that kind of really helped us. Yeah,
definitely.
Moving forwards.
A really good example of a collaboration we were lucky enough to be a part of at the beginning of the pandemic. It really just goes to show how much can be achieved online and through the digital world. We were literally FaceTiming like NHS doctors when they were on their breaks, like when they were working on the front line. We were working with these guys called We Share Healthcare, where they basically had an innovative platform that kind of shared medical procedures, like how to do certain things through COVID that they really needed to get out there. So we were collaborating with several different agencies and with the Royal College of Surgeons to get this stuff out there. So our kind of contribution was a explainer video that helps market their message. And it's just a really awesome way to collaborate during this time. Like it was a really great experience for us and a really good way to pull everyone together, wasn't it? Do you want to say on that?
No, it was just super important because these guys they were having to operate. The surgeons were having to do things in ways that they haven't done it before, and it was everyone had their own way of doing things, and it was kind of creating this kind of platform for them to share their findings, share the safest way of doing stuff, and just getting it all out there. And we just tried to do our little bit by helping get that platform as widely spread as we possibly could. That was our lightning talk. I have no idea how long that went on for, but if you guys want to get in touch with us or just up for a chat, we're always up for a chat. Here are our details.
Thank you.
Thanks guys, and if you did want to link that short animation you made, feel free to chuck it in the chat. I found it really, really interesting what you were saying about how you worded it. It was almost, don't focus on creating sales, focus on creating relationships. Having those relationships will eventually lead, hopefully, into sales, which I thought was a really, really interesting point. And again, what you said as well about being able to access these different networking and different events globally, the barriers have been removed now. You could be in an event in America, in Australia, in Asia somewhere, the barriers have been removed. So why not check something out somewhere else, see what's going on?
Exactly. And there's so many different places to do that. There's like the happy neighborhood project. That's kind of one where they do Zoom calls over the world, so anyone can check that out. They can jump on a Zoom call, completely free. So that's definitely worth it.
Brilliant. So moving on to James Williamson. James is the project manager at NAME, which is a New Anglia Advanced Manufacturing and Engineering Network. James works closely with the Cambridge Irish Tech Corridor, delivering the growth strategy for the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnerships Advanced Manufacturing and Engineering Sector Group. James, hand over to you.
Brilliant, thank you, Jordan. I'll just get my screen shared if that's okay. And hopefully you can see that all okay.
All good.
Yeah, so thanks again, Jordan. Nice to meet everyone. My name's James Williamson. I'm the current project manager for NAME, working on a funded project called Engineering Success, which is currently supported by the New Anglia LEP. So I'm working on a strategic growth strategy for the network, and that's delivering various initiatives, including a talent sharing platform, which should be launching soon. So the network's been around since 2011. It's taken multiple pivots in that time, and really NAME itself is the sector group for manufacturing engineering, which is supported by the LEP, and it's really just there to help the sector grow, come together, share ideas, and create a prosperous environment to generally boost economic growth. And for any Hot Fuzz fans out there, everything we do is for the greater good of the region. So, what's our direction of travel? I won't read these out, but effectively we're looking to be the most vibrant and connected engineering manufacturing community through partnership and collaboration, and again providing that strong, clear leadership with the individuals we have on board to support other businesses, whether they're smaller, larger, or corporates. So again, I appreciate Penny mentioned this earlier, that everything we do is focused on collaboration, everything revolves around it, and everything we do is partnership. So the network itself is free to join, and I mentioned this partnership between industry, public sector, and academia as well, which is known as the Triple Helix. And again, we try to avoid duplicating current initiatives that are out there, and that just comes through the partnership and communication that we have with both public, industry, and academia as well. So traditionally, the manufacturing sector has been very narrow-minded, focused on one direction, and that's not the boy band, don't worry. It's, they were just focused on themselves, their own research, their own products, their own competitive advantage, and their own survival. But luckily that's changed more recently, and I can only talk on behalf of my experience in the kind of last couple of years. But like I said, more recently that collaboration's changed, it's been hit on its head, and really the sector's benefited from working together, and often led to innovations that wouldn't happen without the situation we're in, the pandemic, digital learning, etc. It's all just because of coming together, sharing ideas, sharing best practice, and adapting to change. Don't get me wrong, there is still businesses kind of in that traditional mindset, but the sector is changing, it is evolving, and with time, I think everyone will understand the benefits that it offers from collaboration. So where we're at today, again, there's lots of factors that could contribute to collaboration. I think most recently it's due to kind of the transparency and increase of access to information. There's lots more papers, academic wise, being readily available. There's lots more marketing on it more generally. It could also be down to the support services that we have locally. There's lots more grant schemes, Innovate UK, for example, Enterprise Europe Network, Growth Hubs, HEFL, there's lots of support available. And that's only growing. And yet, because it's fully funded, businesses have free access to the experts locally, which actually help them grow, support them. And again, I think everyone locally, particularly Norfolk and Suffolk, have that mindset of actually we're better working together than on our own. So that's quite an interesting perspective that I've seen in the sector recently. And again, with Innovate UK in particular, they bring together businesses, and their sole focus is collaboration. You bring in businesses that traditionally wouldn't work together, you cross sector as well, and again, all of that's come down to a little bit of a marketing piece, shouting about the benefits, having ambassadors to say, here's what we did, here's the projects, and here's the value they offered, really, most importantly. So hopefully that helps. So where does name come into this? In the east of England, I think the sector itself has a lack of concentrated businesses, not competing as much as each other and not competing for the same customers in comparison to the likes of the Midlands, for example. We don't have any key figureheads that support the structure of the region and dominate it, really. It's so diverse, whether that's aerospace, general CNC milling and turning, all the way through to kind of additive manufacturing. It's just so diverse, and we play on that strength. And this comes down to our manufacturing groups that we run. So we bring together senior leaders, give them a closed environment, and basically say, here's a group for you, a networking support session. You come together with senior leaders, share ideas, share challenges. The pandemic changed that again. Traditionally, these would be in person, we'd have tours, and they'd learn best practice through that way. But now, whilst virtually, it's been very much actually, are we all in the same boat? Here's my business, here's our challenge. Is anyone else facing that? Can anyone else add value to that? So it's been quite an interesting skew, even in the last year, of how businesses are changing and adapting. And, people are firefighting constantly. They're firefighting now. But the fact that, senior leaders, managers, MDs can take an hour, 2 hours out of their day just to say that, right, how is everyone else doing? How can we help? Just shows that there has been a massive skew and change to what's happening. So kind of going to achievements and what's happened, we think we've finally got a golden ticket of how these groups work. Again, it's all down to partnership, mainly led by business and industry, but we kind of facilitate the right environment by having them exclusive and closed, so no consultants, for example, and that just creates a trusted environment. And in the pandemic, we've had various examples of businesses working together. So that came from injection molded parts to 3D printing firms, so they could create face shields for frontline workers. And NAME worked very closely with the LEP and the tech corridor to coordinate the COVID response, really. So how can we get businesses, perhaps in additive manufacturing, that could pivot into the diversification of face shields? So there's lots of examples of those kind of connections taking place, as well as some ones before the pandemic, kind of from aerospace to additive manufacturing, again, coming together, creating new parts, creating new heads of rockets. And it's kind of just through these groups, and just shows, again, how the sector is changing. They're wanting to work together, which has been a really positive response. Finally, what's the future look like? We really want to work collaboratively to challenge and change the perception of the region, and be leaders in cross-sector collaboration and innovation. And again, that's only going to happen through partnerships, through working together. So hopefully that's all okay, and I'll shut up.
Good timing there, James. Good timing. Really interesting to hear how conventionally quite reserved industries are now kind of accelerating the rate at which they do collaborate. And I thought it's really interesting, the question that you've had leaders ask is just, how's everyone else doing? Just be very upfront and say, guys, we need a hand, or we need just a quick chat just to get the kind of ball rolling and get that collaboration going. How's everyone else doing is a really, really kind of quite a vague but quite a powerful question. Brilliant. So moving on, and last but not least, Andy Narayan-Barrow. Andy's a site manager at Heffel Innovation at Heffel Engineering Centre, and has a long history of working in collaborative environments. His background is in climate science and has experience working as a teacher, as well as several years working on set on TV. Andy's also a certified Scrum Master and has helped move parts of Heffel Innovation to work in a more agile practice. So, Andy.
Great, thanks, Jordan. Downside of going last is you don't know if everyone else is going to have said what you wanted to say. So I have instead misinterpreted the brief from Jordan, so you'll have to forgive me. But I was thinking about collaboration and what it is and why we do it. And I kind of came up with a bunch of different regions as to why we collaborate. So there's kind of, I think there's surface ones. So things like people have different skill sets. There isn't infinite amounts of time in the day. And so we have to work together to get things done. And then I think if you dig a bit deeper, humans by nature are social creatures. So I think we're always going to end up collaborating. It's kind of who we are, pre-programmed, I would say. And if you keep digging, I think, collaborating and working together with other people gives you fulfillment. And that's why I think people gain a lot from contributing to something, which kind of led me to two kind of main points that I was going to talk about today. One of which is that when you collaborate, you create something greater than the sum of its parts. So by working together, we make something better than what we would be able to do by ourselves. And then the other part is something I'm happy to argue with people about, but is I don't think we have a choice but to collaborate. I think there is no option. And so to kind of, I was trying to explore this a bit, thinking about it the other day. So kind of a simplistic example, I guess, is construction. So James was just talking about manufacturing, which is obviously hugely collaborative. But, if we take sort of building something, so physically making something, physically building something, say a house, there is a big difference between, if I bought a load of bricks and steel, electrical equipment, did my own architectural drawings and got some kind of gas pipes and dumped them in a field, to when you actually get a collection of people together who have different skills to collaborate essentially, and build something that is more than just the collection of like bricks or steel or roofing tiles and things like that. But then I think that's a kind of simplistic example, but I think you find it everywhere. So technology, for example, same thing. We talk about phones being powerful. And when we talk about that, we don't actually mean phones are powerful like a superhero. We're talking about the hardware and the software that's in them. They have power because of their potential, and that potential comes from collaboration. So the same thing is greater than the sum of its parts. That my iPhone that I've got in front of me with my timer going to keep me on track, it is powerful because not just because it's a good bit of kit that someone has made, it's also the software that's built into it, and the way that I've learned to interact with it and the way that we interact with them with each other. And then to kind of give a maybe more left field example, but I think it's relatable, is music as well. So this is very much the fact we don't have the choice but to collaborate. Music is by definition of a collaboration. You can't make music on your own. When you go to see a band or something, you always go to see more than one musician. There's always a collection of people involved. But, people don't go and see just the guitarist on their own. They don't go and see just a violinist on their own. And trying to think through this as a problem, you could say yes, I might go and see a pianist on their own because you can play that by yourself and you can write music for that by yourself, which I think is a fair point. But if a pianist records an album, there are then people involved. So the second you participate in something, you are collaborating, because if you are listening to music, that music was recorded by someone. So even if it was written and performed, lyrics and music and everything by one person, it was still recorded by someone, it was still produced by someone, put onto albums by someone, distributed by someone, and that is a collaboration. And maybe you could argue further, you could say, okay, well, what about if I just pushed a piano into the street and just played some music, no one recorded it, and it just kind of happened? But then you kind of run into more problems because someone made the piano. So we can't even make music without collaborating with someone, even though it might not be directly. You might not be in the same room at the same time, but you don't have a choice, because unless you're going to go down the road of building your instruments from scratch, but even then, where do the materials come from? You kind of get stuck in this hole of it's unavoidable. And so the point of kind of that, all that stuff, is that I think you can't not collaborate. It's really important to think of everything that we do as a collaboration. Yes, work is collaborative, but so is being at home, so is having a family, so is going out with your friends, or doing Zoom calls with your friends, or whatever we're doing at the moment. You actually have to work really hard not to collaborate. It's a serious effort. You'd have to sit in a cave and be inert, essentially, to avoid collaboration, which none of us are opting to do because we're all here on a Zoom call, and we work and we're trying to do things with our time and our lives. And so everyone has given really good examples of like effective collaboration, but I think it's really important that we also consider that you can't avoid it. You have to collaborate. So it's really, really important that we figure out the best way to do it. And that's why I think sessions like this are really important, because if we don't actively consider what collaboration is, why we do it, and how to do it well, then we're only going to do ourselves a disservice, because we'll collaborate one way or another. We'll either collaborate poorly or we'll collaborate well. We don't have a choice. That's kind of the end of my rant, essentially. But yeah, that's my point. You can't not collaborate. And so I think it's important that we learn to do it effectively.
Thanks, Andy. Really, really interesting point. And for any of you who have ever looked at Belbin's team roles, complete finisher will hate you for saying that.
Oh, I know.
I say that because I'm a complete.
That's what you are, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yes. Brilliant. So what we'll do now is, before we head into the Q&A section, what I'll quickly do is launch our final set of polls. So again, thank you to all the panelists who have quickly given us those lightning talks. If you've got any questions for them, please let us know in the Q&A section. But I'm now going to launch the next set of polls. So, over the past year, I want to know what's been the biggest barrier for your organisation when collaborating internally, and also what's been the biggest barrier for you collaborating externally. Really interested to see if there will be a difference between the answers that we get to those questions. We've already got some different answers coming in. Really interesting. You can see the turning in the panel right now as they think about how it's good. Got some more answers coming in. Please let us know what's been the biggest barrier for you when collaborating internally. What's been the biggest barrier when collaborating externally? Few of you still erring and ahhing over the barriers for you. Give you just a few more seconds for this one. It's difficult to sometimes to step back and reflect on what's happened over the past year. So I'll end that poll now. So, for biggest barrier for collaborating internally, we have the unclear goals and outcomes. That's also reflected in the barriers for external collaboration, but also an unclear process. So perhaps not knowing exactly what you're going into the meeting for, you're not knowing what you're going to be talking about, you don't know what your outcomes are going to be. So really, really interesting to see how these answers differ between an internal and external collaboration. And what we're doing, we're turning all of these polls into some infographics where hopefully you can check them out through our various socials and our website too. So going to stop sharing those now, and we'll move on to the Q&A section of the day. So I'm going to start with Penny, and obviously any of this time, please let us know in the Q&A any other questions you have. Any other panelists, please do jump in and comment or disagree with what's being said by other panelists. But Penny, having worked with and spoken to a lot of businesses, what is one of your favourite collaboration stories from 2020, and what do you think other organisations can learn from it?
I guess there's loads really. I mean, I saw a quote the other day from the corporate VP of Microsoft, who said that they estimate that for every month of lockdown, there's been a year of digital transformation progress. So it that really shows you how fast paced the last year has really been. And I think you've definitely seen that in the tech corridor. In terms of the collaborations that have really shone in this region, I guess the biggest one that everybody probably hears about pretty much every day on the news now is the collaboration between AstraZeneca and Oxford University to develop the UK's vaccine. So that is in the tech corridor. That's an amazing thing for the East of England. I think that really has brought life science to the forefront. So when we talk about tech for the tech corridor, we don't just talk about, it's not about digital or ICT, it's about every type of tech. So it's life sciences, med tech, pet tech, agri tech. So it's really brought health and health tech right to the forefront. So I think it's those collaborations have made people realise why it's so important for the government to invest in them. And also, I think at the Norwich end of the tech corridor, the work that's going on at the research park has been really interesting. I mean, a lot of us perhaps on this call have been working from home the whole time during lockdown, but actually if you work in a lab, or you work, some of James's people that work with James, they're still working. You can't do those jobs from home. So the research park has really made me realize how important it is to have a cluster like that, and to have a geographical cluster. The fact that they're all based next to each other has allowed them to do unbelievable stuff. I've just seen that Quadrum and the work of Dr. Justin O'Grady, who's doing a lot of the work for the government, really tracking the different variants of the COVID virus, has just been on the Wall Street Journal. So it's really making this region, it's really showing how important we are. But to answer your question, I think the collaboration that I think is closest to my heart is, I think, Goodery in Norwich. And I think anybody that hasn't heard of Goodery, it's basically an online marketplace for farmers, small scale producers, to get to their customers during lockdown. So a lot of these kind of organic suppliers, all of a sudden the consumers couldn't come to their shops anymore, and so they're kind of basically cut off. And what I really love about the collaboration is when you go onto the team page of Goodery, that they set up incredibly quickly, you see a collection of people who all have really different backgrounds, who all really different skill sets, but they have this kind of common sense of purpose, that they all want to see the same thing happen in the world. They all wanted to make sure that that amazing kind of organic farmer doesn't lose his livelihood because he could no longer get to his customer. And I think as much as the kind of AstraZeneca and Oxford University collaboration is so crucial, and it's something to be really proud of for this region, I think having people come together around a common sense of purpose, something that they believe in to their heart, and bring onto the table all the tools that they can kind of bring to the table. So Leon Davies, who used to work for, founded Net Zero Taxis, he said, well, we can't just bring organic, ethical brands to people's homes. We have to do it in a way that is also ethical. So everything is delivered kind of net zero to your home. And I just think sometimes we have to remember we're people, and if we find things that we passionately care about ourselves, we make the most kind of sustainable, the most, and I don't mean environmental, I mean as in long-term collaborations that have really interesting outcomes. So I think that's a long-winded answer, but everything.
That's fantastic. And it's testament just to show that almost not to discredit collaboration before it even started. Like you said, you wouldn't necessarily have brought those people together, but they shared that common purpose and that common goal. And that's what's created Goodery. So yeah, definitely. Does anyone on the panel want to kind of add any of their favourite collaboration stories from last year? Cool. We'll move on to Katie then. So, how would you say COVID has affected the way that user stories worked collaboratively, both internally and with clients over the past year? And do you think that the company will return to its old ways when normality resumes? And if so, why or why not?
Yeah, so I covered it a bit in the talk, and I think kind of reflecting, it's affected how internally we collaborate rather than externally, because a lot of our clients are either different parts of the world, different parts of the country, and we're quite used to that. A few tweaks were needed, but actually going from being together with the whole team in the office, doing kind of everything together all the time, then to be quite separated from that was really difficult, and kind of in ways that we didn't expect. We had a lot of kind of sitting there and been like, well, I don't actually feel very productive, or I'm sat in this meeting and I don't feel like I'm contributing that much. And it's almost looking and being like, actually, it's not a great time for anyone. Kind of give yourself a little bit of leeway. We're all trying the best that we can, and we're also very lucky that we've been able to continue as a business when a lot of other businesses have really struggled. And it kind of created a weird sense for us, because we were very lucky to be able to continue, but also it was really stressful. So I think kind of overcoming actually those ways of not, I'm not being as productive, or I'm not working as quickly, or I'm not working as hard because I'm not in an office 5 days a week and it's not necessarily always visible what I'm doing. that required kind of a bit of culture shift, a bit of change in the tools that we were using. But I also don't think we would go back to the way that we worked before, at least not fully, because we can do everything that we need to do from home. What we've realized we really miss is actually the team and going out for lunch and having a chat and just coming up with little ideas. It actually makes no difference if we're having like an official meeting, whether we're doing that on Zoom or in person. But it's kind of that team element that's missing, which is partly why we came up with the idea of Nook, because we somewhat maybe selfishly were like, well, we can't be the only people with this problem, that we don't actually need to go back when, fingers crossed, something is over. But is there a way that actually we can be part of, if there is a shift in the way that people are going to work, providing a space that is flexible, that people can just come together and collaborate when they need to, but also just say, like, it's fine if this works for you, kind of carry on doing that. It's not, I don't think anything really is going to go back to normal, but I think at least there will be a lot of different ways that we haven't seen before for collaboration to happen, for different spaces, for the way that we're using spaces and time and how teams are working together. Because I guess the big thing for us is we've learned that we don't need to go to an office 5 days a week in order to succeed.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really interesting. Well, when you say we're all going to have challenges and barriers when collaborating internally. And I mean, in the poll itself, you all had the option to leave that blank. You could have all said, oh, collaborating internally, yeah, absolutely fine, perfect. But the reality is it is difficult, and we will have to change how we do things. So thanks for that answer, Katie, really interesting. Moving to Lucy and Jake. As a creative startup, what advice would you give to others looking to start their own business, and in particular, how to best engage with others?
Okay, so I think probably just the main thing is just don't, to any students or graduates that are like thinking about doing starting their own business, obviously now is a really weird time and people might be, thinking, I'm going to wait, but actually just don't let the pandemic limit you. It's not limiting. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and don't be afraid to reach out to people, because you'll just be surprised. So many people have showed us a lot of kindness this entire time. It's a really kind and warm place to be in the business world. And I just kind of say it, there's, just go for it. Would you?
Yeah, totally agree.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, as we said in our talk, especially the work that what we do, it's all about building relationships, and relationships are the things that last, not the projects. So it's building them, maintaining them, and just checking up on people as well, especially as we dip in and out of lockdown and all the other tiers and whatever. It's constantly changing. For us, we've had projects, oh, let's do it here. Oh no, we can't do it here. We've had to move it 3-4 weeks away. And you just never know where that stuff's going to. But the only constant is your network, the people you collaborate with. Yeah. So you've got to look after it.
Absolutely.
So a quick follow up to that one then is you've taken advantage of various networking events going on. What piece of advice would you give to others when attending these global and international events where you have no idea who else is in the room?
It turns out not much happens on the events themselves, really. It's everything that follows up. It's all, you're just going on there to meet someone for 20-30 seconds, and then you're in a different room or whatever. So it's about connecting with those guys on LinkedIn, and it's about
getting those one-on-ones.
Yeah.
They're
then
really
just let's have a half an hour chat, so and so, and then once you have that half an hour chat with them, that's when you need to get to know them. Ask them questions about their business. They'll ask you stuff about yours, and you know, you can ask, can we collaborate? Can I help you?
Yeah,
You
just
know?
be authentic, be yourself, and yeah, it sounds cliche, but just go when you go into these rooms. Don't be there to pitch to people. Don't be there to like you know, always sell yourself. Like sort of be thinking about how you can actually help other people. And
That's the biggest turn off for anyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you if anyone goes in there and just starts selling, everyone just completely turns off.
Yeah, so just be yourself. That's the most important thing.
Brilliant. Thank you. I've seen we've got some questions coming in. Keep on submitting them in the Q&A. I see Rob, there's one in the chat. I've made a note of it, and we'll ask that once we've asked questions to James and Andy. So James, in manufacturing, it's recognised as a skill shortage. What do you think that the businesses can do in that sector to collaborate and maybe even address this?
Great question, Jordan. I think skills is a problem on everyone's agenda, regardless of sector, but particularly in manufacturing engineering, there is a national shortage. I think it's quoted something like 1.8 million engineers are needed by 2025. And you know, that just states there needs to be urgent restructuring, urgent support, not just in manufacturing, but all sectors, quite frankly. So I think everyone has a part to play within that. Again, honing on the collaboration point, but it's baby steps. So, you know, as named, we've looked at an initiative, what we could do to support the local sector, and that's kind of revolved around some funding from the left, and that's launching a talent sharing platform, and it's kind of business to business. Really, the sole purpose is to look at currently the unfortunate redeployment of an individual. You know, we are facing redundancies. Let's not beat around the bush. It's massively unfortunate. But what can we do with this platform to keep that talent locally and to support local businesses? And then also, can we look at the kind of secondment route where actually, you know, businesses face known seasonalities. So it could be aviation. You know, 7 months of the year the planes are in the air. You know, for the rest of the 5 months of the year, where are they? They're being serviced. So when they're in the air, what can we do with that population of individuals, talented skills? Could they perhaps be seconded to another sector, for example? Again, could it be offshore? Could it be automotive? There's lots of sector connections that we've looked at and made already. But the purpose of the platform really is to spark those conversations between businesses to say, actually, you know, I've got a new project, I've got a new contract that someone's come to me and said, you know, it could even be like, we need 12 CAD engineers, for example, and they could use this platform to post that, and it can connect businesses together locally and say, actually, yeah, we can meet those demands, and actually, you know, we need someone for a month, 3 months, 6 months, you know, it could be up to a year. So it could look at as an alternative to redundancies as well. But again, it's just baby steps, like I said. There's lots of elements where this platform and other platforms could look to develop, and you know, it could go down the route of where does the skills shortage come from? The pipeline of talent. So actually, could we get industry experts seconded to lecture at the local colleges and then inspire the next generation, for example? So there's lots of work to do, to say the least, and that's kind of something we're looking at as NAME, as a network. But again, no matter what, everyone can do that and play their own part in it, and it's obviously just really important that everyone does play their part.
Okay, so with that platform, could that then introduce the ability to create kind of multifunctional workers as well?
Yeah, again, it could be, you know, the ambitions future platform could be, you know, do we hire almost 10, 15, 20 individuals, train them up, multi-skill them, and then just second them out to multiple businesses? And again, the purpose of all of this will be, it doesn't just keep the talent locally, it keeps the students locally because they get the internships, experience, etc. But actually, can we attract talent from out of the region because of the flexible working? You know, you will no longer work with one business. You know, every year you can have an arrangement to say, right, for this 3-month period, I'm going to business A, business B the next year, and business C the following. So it just kind of adds a little mix to the tradition that we're working with. And again, because it's such a traditional sector, it's quite interesting to work on, but we've had some really positive responses so far.
Brilliant, brilliant. So moving on to Andy, very short, succinct question for you. What makes an effective collaborator?
I think the most important thing when you're doing any collaboration is attitude. If you go into something with the right attitude, you'll get a lot out of it. If you go into something with the wrong attitude, you'll get nothing out of it. I think what Lucy and Jake were saying about, if you're going into these networking events and you're trying to sell yourself, you're essentially trying to get something. And I don't think that works. Everyone is very aware when people are trying to get something for themselves. We're all aware of people who are very hardline salespeople. But people who are personable and build relationships, you get a lot more out of, and you're much happier to work with them, talk to them, do them favors, that kind of thing. So I think the number one thing, if you're trying to collaborate and work together with someone, is to consider what you have to offer. And I think the other half of it is always consider a collaboration an opportunity to learn something. You don't learn anything if you're talking about yourself. So my advice for people would be to shut up and listen to other people, because people have always got really good ideas and opinions and thoughts on things, but you won't hear them if you're going to go in and try and sell. So I always think the most important thing is to try and say as little as possible. Try and let the other person, get what they need out of it and help them first. And if both sides are trying to do that, then you'll actually spend the whole time trying to help each other, and that's going to be really effective.
Fantastic. I was going to open it up to the rest of the panel as well. Does anyone else want to share maybe some common traits that an effective collaborator you think displays? Who can take the lead?
I think it comes down to listening, being a good listener, being able to hear everyone's concerns and the way everyone is feeling, and to be able to take that and then go back to your team or go back to whoever you're collaborating with, and with a nice strong path of now how are you going to deal with this. I think, yeah.
Brilliant. I see Katie's unmuted now as well.
Yeah, because I think the point on attitude there is something that we come across. So if we are tackling a task or any task, it's likely that the skill needed to do that task you can learn. Someone could teach you, you could put the time in, and you could learn how to do that. You can't teach the attitude needed to want to learn or want to participate. And maybe some people would disagree with not being able to learn the attitude part, but that is fine. But that is a lot harder. So if you go in with the right attitude, like Andy said, totally agree, you will learn more, you'll get more out of it, people will enjoy it more, working with you, and there's more chance that you're going to make progress. Because I also totally agree with Lucy and Jake, it's for us as well as a business, it's about relationships. We don't do any hardcore sales. It's literally just if we can be nice people, we can help, and you're the person that someone then thinks of if they have a problem. That's come from an actual real relationship, rather than, hello, here's my services and here's what I do and this is what we can do for you, which just gets annoying, let's face it. But yeah.
Brilliant. James, I see you've unmuted as well.
Yeah, echoing kind of everything everyone's said so far, I think, a lot of the stuff comes naturally. Like I said, listening, etc., that's all really important. And once you have that relationship, yes, to some degree, everyone's core purpose is to win new business. Everyone's a salesperson. Let's not argue about that. But like I said, if you can show them straight away your value, that you understand them, you listen, and you put their needs first, much like everyone's already said, that's quite a key point. And then, things happen naturally after that. If it is contracts or actually, if you can say, put yourself out your comfort zone and try and learn a new skill, perhaps reach out to a new sector and say, here's this person, we've had a great chat and I think they might be useful. And again, if you can make introductions to other people that, again, hasn't benefited yourself necessarily, but you've put someone else first, I think that kind of all comes down to key collaborating.
Perfect. Penny, did you want to complete the panel, share your thoughts on what makes an effective collaborator?
Find my unmute button. Yeah, I think, I guess, for me, some of it, one of the bits of my role that I really enjoy the most really is a lot of my time in real world, when we're able to get out of the house, is meeting different businesses, understanding what they do, what their sense of purpose is, what their skill sets are. And then a lot of what we do is we have kind of almost little mini Rolodexes in our brains, where when we meet other people that we think, do you know what, you're trying to achieve X, and there's another business that's already got part of that component, you should work together. So I think it's a bit like the Goodyear example, really. It's much easier to collaborate when you're really clear on what you're trying to do. And I think quite often I find myself in kind of very big meetings with lots and lots of people where we walk out of the room and we're like, what are we going there for? And did we actually do it? So I noticed in a meeting room, and it may well be at Hethel, that they had a whiteboard as you go in the door, and you have to write, before you go in, you have to write on the board what you're trying to achieve in that meeting, and having a really clear one sentence, like, we're not going to come out until we've done X. And I think having that kind of clarity of like, what are we trying to collaborate on? We can't just sit around the room and all talk at each other and share tasks. It's like, let's really focus on, we can't come out of this room until we've done X. I think that probably would help speed some of the meetings up in this region.
That's a really, really interesting way of actually understanding why you're collaborating, why you're going into these meetings, the benefits of now working from home. You haven't got to travel for an hour, 2 hours to meet someone and kind of blankly look at them and say, what are we talking about again? Whereas if you have that transparency, even if you were to write it right in front of them, here's what we're talking about, at least then you know what you're there for. So really, really interesting point. I saw a comment in the chat. Tom says, as a facilitator of collaboration, he believes it is vital to have a process or a tool that allows all to contribute and not let the boss or the person with the loudest voice dominate. A really interesting point there from Tom. I'm going to move into the Q&A in the chat now for the questions, so keep on coming in. I'm going to move on to Tom's question first, and I'm going to direct this to Katie initially, and anyone else is welcome to join in. Tom asks, can anyone recommend a good virtual whiteboard? Tried Mural and Miro, both are good, but would like to know what others have used. So Katie, I'll ask you first.
Yeah, so the one I mentioned in my presentation, Whimsical, is what we use. So it has different modes effectively set up for different types of activities. So you can have a wireframe, flowchart, sticky notes, mind maps, and it kind of caters the tools for the type of activity or the type of diagram, whatever kind of artifact you're trying to create. Is maybe not as involved as some of the stuff that Mural and kind of Miro can do, but we find it works for simplicity and a low barrier to entry in getting other people, like inviting people to sessions and getting them to use it. And I mean, hopefully, Jordan, you had the experience. We got you to use it at one point, and hopefully it wasn't too bad. And Andy, but we're a big fan of that one. It's low barrier to entry, got most of the things that you need from a digital whiteboard. So I would recommend giving that one a